All right, let's dive in. This time we're going on a musical time machine trip. You guys have given us a crazy playlist.
Yeah.
It's wild. Chart toppers, behind the scenes stories, even some wild moments, and it goes all the way.
All over the place.
Yeah, from the 1940s to the early 2000s.
It's going to be a wild ride. We've got Glenn Miller,
Yeah.
the Beatles, Elvis, Tupac,
Yeah.
even Britney Spears.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a mix.
That's what I love about it, right? Looking at these little moments in time, we can like figure out
Absolutely.
how music has changed, how the whole music industry has shifted, and you know what? Maybe even how our culture has kind of changed along with it.
Oh, absolutely.
So where do we even start with all this?
Well, I think it'd be really cool to start in the 1940s with Glenn Miller.
Okay.
I mean, In the Mood was a huge hit, right? Number one for 10 weeks. And then
10 weeks.
10 weeks. And then in 1942, Chattanooga Choo Choo becomes the first ever gold record.
Oh, wow. The first ever. See, now that's a story. We say gold record all the time now, but
Yeah.
what did it actually mean back then?
Oh, totally different. Back in 42, a gold record meant you sold 1 million actual copies. No streams, no downloads, nothing like that.
Wow.
It showed how popular an artist really was.
Yeah.
And for Glenn Miller, I mean, his music was all about World War II, you know?
Right.
It tells us a lot about that whole era.
What do you mean by all about World War II?
Well, think about it. The world was a mess. People were scared. They were anxious. They needed something to feel good about.
Yeah.
Miller's music, you know, it was upbeat. You could dance to it. The whole big band sound, it was an escape.
It made you want to move, huh?
Exactly.
Forget your troubles.
For just a little bit.
So it wasn't just notes, it was a feeling.
Right. That escape during a really tough time.
Exactly.
It really shows how music can be more than just entertainment. It can be like this cultural thing.
A cultural force.
Yeah.
And we see that again and again in music, right? It's not just what you hear, it's the whole picture, the culture, the emotions, everything.
Absolutely. And maybe the biggest example of that is rock and roll. It's 1956, Little Richard. He just explodes onto the scene
Oh, yeah.
with Long Call Sally. And that song, so much energy, you can't help but move.
I love that song. I can't sit still when it comes on.
Yeah.
And what was it about Little Richard, though, and this new sound? What made it so different, you know?
Oh, Little Richard changed everything. His voice, his style, how powerful his music was, it challenged everything people thought music could be.
Right.
He was breaking down barriers, doing things no one had done before,
Breaking boundaries.
paving the way for guys like Elvis.
Elvis, exactly.
That leads us to 1958, his double hit Don't and I Beg of You,
Oof,
right?
You got it.
Yeah.
Elvis, he takes that energy, that rebellious feeling that Little Richard started, and he makes it bigger.
Yeah.
He becomes the symbol for a whole cultural revolution.
Wow.
Rock and roll goes from dangerous and edgy to like the biggest thing in the world.
And all in just a few years.
Think how fast that was.
I bet a lot of people were like, what is happening?
Oh, yeah, it was loud, full of energy, and it went against all the rules. Yeah, it definitely challenged everything.
But that's what made it so powerful.
Interesting.
It gave a voice to us, like a whole generation who wanted something different.
They wanted something new.
Yeah, something that matched their lives. And the music industry, they had to change, whether they liked it or not.
Yeah, they had no choice but to adapt.
And they did. But rock and roll didn't stop there. The 60s took that rebellious spirit and made it into a whole movement.
Yeah, it was more than just music by then.
That's a great way to put it. And nobody shows that better than the Beatles.
Oh, absolutely.
1967, they let cameras into Abbey Road Studios to film like a music video for A Day in the Life. It was like seeing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And then just a year later, bam, they started Apple Corps, their own company.
They were like, we're doing things our own way.
Yeah, from cute guys with guitars to like serious businessmen.
What do you think caused that shift?
They always wanted to do more than just play music. They wanted to be in control of their art, their image, their whole message. Apple Corps. It wasn't just business, it was a statement
Yeah.
about being independent, about being creative.
And it wasn't just them. In 68, Jim Morrison, the lead singer of The Doors, he's on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Oh, yeah. Jim Morrison.
What did that mean, you know, back then?
It was like a picture of the whole counterculture movement,
Okay.
you know? Morrison, with his lyrics and how wild he was on stage, he was like the symbol for a whole generation that was questioning everything.
Yeah, they were experimenting, demanding change. That's so different from someone like, you know, Glenn Miller just a few decades before.
It really was a huge change.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about rock anymore. By 68, there were all kinds of music happening.
Yeah.
Kenny Rogers in the first edition, they had a hit with just dropped in to see what condition my condition was in.
Oh, I love that song.
It was psychedelic, kind of country rock, very unique.
Very unique.
Yeah. And then there was Paul Moriat with Love is Blue. That was a softer sound, more orchestral, what we call mood music today, I guess.
So you have this crazy mix, right? The psychedelic stuff from Kenny Rogers and the smooth sound of Paul Moriat. And then Sly and the Family Stone, they bring in the shunk with dance to the music. It's insane how many different types of music are popular at the same time.
It was. It really shows how creative that time was.
Yeah.
Funk and soul were getting big with their social messages and their groovy sounds. Country was reaching more people, and singer-songwriters were starting to become popular with their more personal lyrics.
Oh, and speaking of singer-songwriters, we can't forget Carole King. Her album Tapestry came out in 71, right? It's full of like deep lyrics and beautiful melodies. She became a legend because of that album.
Absolutely. And when you think about Carole King's success, especially as a songwriter, it's really different from, say, the Andrews Sisters, who were big in the 40s.
Oh, that's interesting.
So yeah,
She wrote her own music. She controlled her own story.
she was a huge success on her own terms. Nothing like the girl groups of the past.
Right. It was something new.
Yeah, and it reflects what was happening in culture at the time.
Women were taking charge.
Yeah, they wanted more control over their lives and their careers.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we see that a lot in the 70s, right?
All over the place.
Yeah.
But this push for freedom and change, it wasn't always easy.
Of course not.
In 71, London's Royal Albert Hall, they actually canceled a Frank Zappa concert.
Wait, they canceled the show at the Royal Albert Hall. Why?
Obscene lyrics. Zappa, he was known for pushing the limits with his music and lyrics, and some people just thought he was too controversial.
It makes you think, though. Who gets to decide what art is okay? Where do we draw the line between creative expression and what some people might find offensive?
That's a tough question, and there's no easy answer. And we're going to see that come up again as we go through music history.
Yeah, probably a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes those clashes weren't just about art. They were personal. Like in 75, when Phil Spector, you know, the famous producer who invented the wall of sound, he gets hurt in a car accident.
Yeah, Phil Spector. He was a genius, but he had his demons. You know, his life was always chaotic.
Yeah.
And that accident, it was a tragedy. But it reminds us that musicians, even the really famous ones, they have real lives too.
They go through tough stuff like everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes those problems happen within the bands themselves. Take 1983, for example. Whitesnake lost their guitarist, Mick Moody. And then Kenny Hyslop, the drummer for Simple Minds, he quit.
Bands are interesting, aren't they? You've got these super talented people, they come together, make amazing music. But then, you know, the pressure, creative differences, personalities clashing, it's a recipe for both the best and the worst times.
It's like a pressure cooker sometimes. And as we get into the mid-'80s and later, we'll see these tensions, these egos clashing, lead to some pretty crazy events. But that's a story for next time, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got to save something for later. We'll be back in a flash to explore how all this drama, these changes in the music business, start to shake things up in some pretty unexpected ways. Stay tuned.
For sure.
Unlock the magic of one-of-a-kind collectibles at Desert Radio AZ Emporium on eBay. Dive into a world of t-shirts, artwork, flags, and beyond. Whether you're after something new or a vintage find, we've got treasures waiting for you. Visit today at Desert Radio AZ Emporium on eBay. Your journey into the unique awaits.
We were talking about all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes in bands, right?
Yeah, all the pressure and conflicts.
Right. And sometimes it all blows up in public.
Exactly. Like in 1987, when Roger Waters, you know, from Pink Floyd, he finally drops his lawsuit against the rest of the band.
Oh, yeah.
About using the Pink Floyd name.
Man, that was a messy breakup.
Yeah.
Very public, too. But it shows us something important about the music industry, you know, the business side of art.
What do you mean?
Well, when a band gets as huge as Pink Floyd, their name isn't just a name anymore. It's like a brand.
Oh, I see.
It's valuable.
Yeah.
And then when they split up, things get complicated. Who owns the name? Who gets to use it?
Right.
It's not just about the music. It's about money and lawyers, too.
Yeah, who gets to profit from it all?
You got it. And that Pink Floyd case, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
It set a precedent for how bands deal with this stuff now.
Makes you think, even in music, business is a big part of it.
It is. And while all this legal stuff was going on, The music industry itself was about to change completely.
Yeah.
Big time.
In 1999, Musician magazine shuts down.
Oh, yeah, musician.
It had been around for like over 20 years.
I know, right? It was a sign of things to come.
Sign of change.
The whole digital revolution.
Yeah, the internet, downloads, file sharing, streaming.
All of it. Music was changing and fast.
That's how we listened to it, how we discovered it, everything.
Exactly. The old way of doing things, even music journalism. It had to adapt or it would disappear.
It's a crazy time, right?
Oh, yeah. Like a whole new Wild West.
I like that. The Wild West of music.
No one knew what the rules were anymore.
Yeah, who knew what would happen next?
But before we get too far into the digital age, let's go back to the 90s for a minute.
Okay.
It was a really interesting time with these big music legends and new artists all coming up together.
It was a mix of everything.
It really was. And one of those legends, still on top, Eric Clapton.
Yeah, Eric Clapton.
In 1990, he finishes this huge residency at the Royal Albert Hall in London.
18 shows.
18 shows.
Yeah.
Then in 92, his video Cream of Clapton goes gold, and his Unplugged album wins a bunch of Grammys.
He was unstoppable.
He was.
Yeah.
And think about it. He went from blues rock in the 60s and 70s to this more mature sound that a whole new generation loved.
Yeah, he changed with the times.
He really did. He adapted, but he stayed true to his roots. It shows how talented he is.
Yeah, how he could connect with anyone, no matter their age.
Absolutely. And while Clapton was having this comeback, a new sound was starting to take over.
Hip hop.
The 90s were huge for hip hop.
Oh, yeah, huge GE. It went from kind of underground to like the biggest thing in the world.
Mainstream?
Exactly. And with it came these new artists who weren't afraid to push the limits.
To say what they thought, challenge the rules.
Absolutely. And some of them, they became famous for more than just their music.
Yeah, they were in the news a lot, like Tupac Shakur. In 94, he's convicted of assault
Yeah.
and all his legal trouble. It was everywhere in the media.
His story is so complicated.
It is. He was brilliant, super talented, but he also had a rough life, full of violence and controversy.
It was a reflection of where he came from.
And he wasn't the only one. In 95, Dr. Dre gets in trouble for drunk driving.
Yeah, I remember that.
These things, and with gangster rap getting so popular, it started a debate about what hip hop was doing to society.
A lot of people were worried.
Yeah. Some thought it was making violence and crime look cool. Others said it was just showing how hard life was for some people.
It was a reflection of reality for them.
Exactly. But even with all the criticism, people loved hip hop for being real.
For being authentic.
Yeah, for giving a voice to those who felt ignored. I mean, it's funny, right? Hip hop can be controversial and empowering at the same time.
Yeah, full of contradictions.
That's what makes it so interesting.
It shows us that music is always a mirror of what's happening.
Yeah, what people are feeling.
How they're dealing with the world.
Exactly. And while hip hop was taking off, artists from older generations were still proving that good music never gets old.
It's timeless.
Like Ray Orbison. In '89, his song You Got It. It was on like every chart.
Wow, all of them.
Top 40, country, adult contemporary albums, all of them.
Roy Orbison, The Voice. I love his music.
It's classic. His music reached everyone, no matter what kind of music they usually liked.
It was powerful.
It really shows how strong good songwriting and a great voice can be.
And as we get into the late 90s and early 2000s, there's this weird tension between the old and the new.
Yeah, the changing of the guard.
You have Britney Spears, like the ultimate pop star. Her song, Baby One More Time, it goes platinum in 99.
Yeah, Britney was huge.
But in that same year, Musician magazine shuts down.
Right. The old way was dying.
Yeah, it's like teen pop rising up as the music industry was falling apart.
It's a perfect picture of what was happening in the world.
The internet changing everything.
Yeah, music genres mixing together.
And the power shifting from the big companies to the artists themselves.
Exactly. And speaking of power, remember that poll in 2003 about the Grammys?
Oh, yeah, where people thought the nominations didn't represent the best music.
75% of people thought so.
That's a lot. What does that tell us, do you think?
I think it shows how much our idea of good music was changing.
Okay.
With the internet, fans could listen to anything they wanted.
So much choice.
Exactly. They didn't need radio DJs or record labels telling them what was good.
Right.
They could decide for themselves. And they weren't afraid to say what they thought.
So the internet gave them a voice.
Yeah. And they could challenge the people who used to control everything in music.
That's powerful.
It was like a music revolution.
Like rock and roll all over again.
Exactly. Just this time, it was online.
Different tools, same spirit.
Yeah. People wanted to choose their own music, to find their own sound.
And that idea that you could choose your own musical identity, it really comes through when we look at everything happening in the late 90s and early 2000s. You have Brian Connolly, the lead singer of Sweet. He passes away in 97.
Oh, yeah. Brian Connolly.
It reminds us that, even rock stars aren't invincible.
Life can be unpredictable.
And that same year, Liam Gallagher from Oasis, the guy with the rock star attitude, he calls off his wedding to Patsy Kensit.
Oh, the drama.
Yeah, because of all the media attention. But then they get married 2 months later anyway.
Wild, right.
It's like fame and money can't protect you from relationship problems.
Yeah, or from the public always watching.
And then in the middle of all that, you have Melissa Etheridge and Julie Cypher. They have their first child. It was a big moment for the LGBTQ plus community.
It was a huge step for visibility and acceptance.
It challenged what people thought a family should look like.
And musically. We see all these genres blending together.
Yeah, it was getting hard to categorize things.
Like Will Smith in 98.
Oh, yeah, Will Smith.
He releases Getting Jiggy With It.
Yeah.
He went from rapper to movie star, but he was still making hits.
Yeah, Will Smith, the ultimate multi-talented guy. And we can't forget Mariah Carey, the queen of the power ballad.
Oh, Mariah.
Her album Ones goes triple platinum in 99.
Yeah, she was proving she was still on top.
A true diva. So as we wrap up our look at the 90s and early 2000s, what stands out to you the most?
I think this time period is all about things coming together. You have the internet changing everything, hip-hop blowing up, rock and pop still evolving, and all these social and cultural issues becoming part of the music world.
It's like music was reflecting everything that was happening.
Yeah, all the good and the bad. It's a reminder that music isn't just sounds. It's about our lives, what we believe in, what we struggle with, what we hope for.
It's a reflection of us.
Exactly. And as we move further into the 21st century, I think music will keep changing and shaping our world in ways we can't even imagine yet.
And that's a whole other deep dive, right?
It is. But until then, think about your own journey with music and how it connects to everything happening around us.
Man, we covered a lot, huh?
We did.
From big bands to rock and roll, from the counterculture movement to hip hop, all the way to the internet, changing everything.
It's been quite a ride through music history.
It really has. It just shows you how powerful music is.
Yeah.
How it changes, how it reflects what's going on in the world.
And how it connects with us,
Yeah, on a personal level, that poll about the Grammys we talked about, it got me thinking.
Oh, yeah.
If we're not listening to, the big awards shows to tell us what's good,
right.
How do we decide for ourselves? What makes us like certain music?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't think there's one answer that works for everyone.
Right.
Our taste in music, it comes from so many things. Our experiences, our culture, our age, even our mood.
It's more than just the notes.
Exactly. It's about how we connect with it,
A song that I loved when I was younger
Yeah.
might make me feel totally different now.
Right. Or a song you didn't get at first. Maybe you learned about the artist or what was happening in the world when it came out.
Yeah.
And suddenly you love it,
It's like our taste in music keeps growing and changing.
just like music itself.
Exactly. And that's what makes looking back at music history so cool.
Yeah.
It's not just dates and names. It's about understanding how everything fits together, how those moments created the music we have today.
It's like a giant puzzle,
Yeah.
with each piece being a different influence or invention or change in culture.
And the cool thing is,
Yeah.
the puzzle never ends. There's always something new to discover.
New connections to make.
Yeah. And as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I can't help but wonder what's next for music.
Only know.
What crazy new sounds will we hear? What boundaries will be pushed?
That's the best part. We have no idea.
Yeah. But one thing's for sure,
Who's that?
music will always surprise us, challenge us, and inspire us.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, it's been awesome exploring these moments in music history with you.
I had a blast.
And to everyone listening, thanks for coming along with us on this journey through the decades.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
We hope you discovered something new, or maybe rediscovered something old.
Keep the music playing.
And keep those tunes spinning.